Good afternoon and welcome to another edition of Salon Talks. I'm Allie Joseph, and today my guest is director Sofia Coppola. Female directors, so the statistics are bleak, as we all know. 17% of the 250 top grossing films of last year were directed by a woman. 17%, right? What advice do you give young women who want to direct, and how can they overcome those odds?
Yeah, I think by being determined and making your work, and I'm hoping now with such conversation and Wonder Woman being successful that there'll be more and more openness to that audience, that point of view being a valid one. But I hope that young women, I've met a lot of young women that are really wanting to be filmmakers and out there, and hopefully they'll make their work. Yeah, I mean, I think to anyone I would just say to make the movies that you want to see and that you don't feel you're seeing, or stories that you don't feel are being represented, because I just make what I am interested in and that I love and what I want to see, and I hope we see more and more different points of view, different experiences out there.
Miss Martha! Miss Martha! Is he dead?
No. Get him inside. Quick! You're a most unwelcome visitor, and we do not propose to entertain you.
You'll find them easily amused.
You won't be here long enough for that.
How did you end up in this place?
Why are you so interested in me?
I admire your strength.
I'm just trying to give them what they need to survive in these times.
If you could have anything in the world, what would it be?
To be taken far away from here.
Come with me.
He seems to be a sensitive person.
Does he?
Nina?
It seems the enemy is not what we believe.
I hope you like apple pie.
Is that my recipe?
It is.
I need rags. I need chloroform. Go to the smokehouse, get the saw, now. Bring me the anatomy book.
Can I get you anything?
Give me the key.
You know I'd get in trouble for that.
If you're just joining us, I'm Allie Joseph, and sitting here, of course, with director Sofia Coppola, and that is her new film, The Beguiled, which is a remake of a 1971 Civil War film starring Clint Eastwood. Tell me about some of the changes that you decided to make in a little bit more detail.
Yeah, it's really not about the Civil War. That's really the backdrop, but it's about a group of women that are isolated and together, and girls from age 12 to women in their 40s, and how just the experience of their dynamics together and being very isolated, and then at the heart of it, it's about kind of male-female power struggles when a man comes in and how they interact. And yet I made changes from the original one. I thought a lot about what I wanted to portray, and there was some like psychedelic, there's like an incest story and things that
It's the 70s!
Yeah, and I felt like that why can't we talk about these women having sexual desire without that being something strange, and to treat that in a more human way. And there's also a slave character in the original one that felt very stereotypical, and I just felt like I didn't want to talk about that story because that's such an important story for another film, and focus on this group of women about them.
Well, I think that's an important distinction you make, because there has been some hubbub about what people perceive as your omission of slavery, but there is actually a caption, and I was just curious the choice that you made and why you chose to handle it that way, because it seems like it was very conscious.
Yeah, no, I thought about it, and I just felt like I didn't want to brush over a very important part of our history, so I felt that to not have that character would be, I felt it would be disrespectful, and I wanted to really keep the story about these isolated women who were cut off, and not make it about politics.
And in fact, just like slavery, even the Civil War is kind of a backdrop to the film. It's really not, we have the soldier and we have the women, but save for a few cutaways and moments, you don't see a lot of fighting, you don't see a lot of other soldiers, so it's sort of an insular piece.
It really is about this group of women that are cut off and the dynamics between them and what happens when Colin Farrell comes in. And really, I try to stay away from the politics and the history of that era.
So what makes the film unique as told from the women's perspective? Because I think we mentioned, but I'll just reiterate, that the original film was told from the perspective of the soldier, and now this is from the women's perspective.
Yeah, I thought to do a story, the original story was about this group of women in this girls' school cut off during wartime, and the Clint Eastwood story is about him and his attractiveness and how it kind of drives them all crazy. And
the 70s.
Yeah, exactly. It's great. It's a very, it's a classic of that genre. So I wanted to look at what interested me about the dynamics of these women at different ages and different stages of maturity, and how they all interact, and then what happens, when a man comes in, and the shifts in power between them, and I think it's a really fun story too, in that there's a lot of humor and tension and sexual tension.
When you sat down to recreate this, what was that process like, thinking it through? Like, how do we make these women seem all of the many different things that make up womanhood and the complexity of that sexuality?
Yeah, when I looked at adapting the script, I took the book and I started to edit down which characters I wanted to focus on, and I thought Kirsten Dunst could play the teacher character, and Elle Fanning now, last time I worked with her, she's 11, now she's 18, so she's a young woman, and then Nicole Kidman I would love to have as the headmistress, and they each identify and connect with him in a different way depending on their kind of maturity stage. And I feel like I've been those different ages, and I just try to put myself into it or think of people I know and connect it with experiences from life.
Do you take a lot in your work from your real life?
I do. I mean, I think there's always something fascinating to me about the way women communicate, that there's a lot communicated without words, with a glance or a tone, their tone, and there's also, like hierarchy in a group of women, and so I'm fascinated by that and wanted to explore that.
What was it like working with a nearly all-female cast? Because that's not something that you get to experience all the time. And did it affect how you approach the work at all?
No, it was just really great to have such a group of women all working together, because it's not that usual that you have a cast that with so many women and at different ages, and Colin was a good sport about being our one man.
Soul testosterone.
Yeah.
Is there a camaraderie on set when you have so much estrogen, contrary to the notion that women don't get along? Because you had young women, and you have I don't know if Nicole Kidman's like a den mother. There's a sort of a niceness. Can you share any stories about on set?
Yeah, no, we had a really nice atmosphere, and Nicole plays the headmistress of the school, and she was very looking after the younger actresses, because we had girls that were 12 and young teenagers, and then also a lot of the crew, the department heads, the production designer, the costume designer, and the editor were all women. So, but we did have some men there too, but there was a really nice atmosphere.
Women in Hollywood, this is a big topic right now.
Yes.
Last year there was an analysis that found that after age 40, male actors get 80% of the leading roles available, which is terrible. It really is. It's just a staggering statistic.
Yeah.
Do you feel a responsibility to create more roles, especially leading ones for women of a certain age?
I just think that half the population is women, so it makes sense that that point of view is represented, and I hope we see more and more different, diverse points of view, and not just one.
Mm-hmm. Take me through France this year. I mean, you as I mentioned, you were there as a girl, and you came back this year to
in Cannes
to win this top award. What must that have felt like?
Yeah, I mean, I went there as a kid when I was 8 years old with my father for Apocalypse Now, and I've been over the years with my first film, Virgin Suicides. I showed it in Cannes, and that was the first time I ever showed my work, and I really felt like my career started there. So I have a lot of sentimental attachment to Cannes, and also just has such great history. It's such a, iconic international film festival, and to see filmmakers from all over the world. And Jane Campion came to my premiere this year, which was really exciting for me. And so it was a thrill. When I got home and heard that I won that prize for this film, I was really surprised and thrilled.
That's amazing. What did your dad say?
He was so proud. He was really excited. And my daughters, they went and told their school. They were excited. And I walked down the street and women would congratulate me. And I just felt like really that other women felt like a part of it, and women artists. And so I was proud.